Chapter 33. I stared at the letter for the longest time. He left me. He left me for her. When the finality of it hit me, I was consumed by a wild rush of rage. I picked up the closest breakable thing and flung it across the room with every ounce of strength I had. I heard Nina gasp as the glass shattered against the wall, and that brought me back. I'd completely forgotten she was there. Through heavy breaths, I shook my head. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. I didn't mean to frighten you. He's gone. Aaron's gone. What? He eloped with Camille. I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling slightly unhinged. I can't imagine why the Queen would have authorized something like this, but she unquestionably did. Gabriel said it was legal. Downstairs. So what does that mean? I swallowed. With Camille in line for her throne, and Aaron as her prince consort. His primary duty is to France now. Ilya is nothing more than the country he was born in. Do your parents know? I nodded. I'm not sure he sent them letters as well. I should go to them. Nina came over and smoothed out my dress and my hair. She took a tissue to my face, blotting away any imperfections. There now. That's how a future queen should look. That's how my future queen should look. I threw my arms around her. You're too good to me, Nina. Hush. Go to your parents. Then. They need you. I stepped back and swiped at the tears that were so close to falling. I went down the hall, knocking on the door to Dad's room, which they generally shared. No one answered, so I risked a quick peek inside. Dad? I stepped into the huge space. I hadn't been here in so long. Maybe since I was a child. And I couldn't remember if it had always been this way. The room looked more like something Mom would have decorated than him. Warm colors on the walls, books everywhere. If this was his retreat, why didn't it feel like him at all? Without Mom and Dad joining me, I felt like I was intruding and turned to go, but I was stopped in my tracks by the sight behind me, several large framed pictures. Covered the walls. There was one of Mom and Dad when they were my age, with him in full suit. And sash next to Mom in a cream-colored dress. I saw them on their wedding day, faces covered in cake. Mom, her hair slicked back with sweat, holding 2 babies in her arms as Dad kissed her forehead, a tear falling down her cheek. Tear falling down his cheek. Several candid shots, like a kiss, a smile, had been blown up or changed to black and white, making them seem more classic than casual. 2 things became instantly clear. First, the reason Dad's room didn't feel like it was completely his was because it wasn't. He had all but turned it into a shrine to Mom. Or rather, a shrine to the 2 of them. And how deeply they loved each other. I saw it every day, but it was different. Seeing the images they both looked at before falling asleep in each night. They were meant to be, even after dozens of obstacles, and they liked to be reminded of it constantly. Second, I could see why Aaron would give me up, give all of us up for a chance at this. If he even got a scrap of the love Mom and Dad had, it would be justified. In that moment, I knew I needed to tell them what Aaron's letter said. They would understand, perhaps better than anyone on the planet, why he had to go. They'd certainly understand better than I could. They weren't in the dining hall. Than I could. They weren't in the dining hall, or Dad's office, or Mom's room. In fact, the hallways were abnormally empty. There wasn't a single guard in sight. "Hello?" I called into the dimly lit air. "Hello?" Finally, a pair of guards came running around the corner. "Thank God," one said. "Go to King and tell him we found her." The second guard raced away, while the first faced me and took a deep breath. "You need to come with me to the hospital wing. Your Highness, your mother has had a heart attack." As quiet as it was, it sounded like he was screaming. I couldn't think of what to say or what to do, but I knew I had to get to her. Even in heels, I outpaced the guard, running out as fast as I could. The only thoughts passing through my head were how wrong I'd been about so many things, how snippy I'd been with her when I'd wanted my way, and I was sure that she knew I loved her, but I needed to tell her one more time. In front of the hospital wing, Aunt May sat next to Miss Marley, who appeared to be deep in prayer. Austin mercifully wasn't present, but Caden was there trying so hard to look brave. Lady Bryce was there as well, pacing on the skirts of the scene, but the true fear of the moment was summed up in Dad. He clung to General Leger, holding on to him for dear life, his fingers digging into the back of his uniform. He was unabashedly crying, and I'd never heard such a painful sound. I hoped I never would again. I can't lose her. I don't know. I don't. General Leger grabbed him by the shoulders. Don't think about that now. We need to believe she'll be fine, and you need to think about your children. Dad nodded, but I could tell he didn't quite believe he was capable. Daddy? I called, my voice breaking. He turned to me and opened his arms. I bolted right to them. I bolted right to him, squeezing him. I let myself cry, not concerned with pride at the moment. What's happened? I don't know, honey. I think the shock of Aaron leaving soon. Aaron leaving was too much. Heart problems run in her family, and she's been so anxious lately. His voice changed, and I knew he wasn't really talking to me anymore. I should have made her rest more. I should have asked her. I should have asked her for less. She did everything for me. General Leger grabbed his arm. You know how stubborn she is. You know how stubborn she is, he said kindly. Do you think for 1 second she'd have let you make her slow down? They both shared a sad smile. Dad nodded. Okay, so now we wait. General Leger let him go. I need to go home and tell Lucy. I need to go home and tell Lucy and get fresh clothes. I'll call her mother. If you haven't already. Dad sighed to himself. I didn't even think about it. I got it. And I'll be back within an hour. Whatever you need, I'm here. Dad, let me go.
Cat desk. Sierra. Screen curtain lock. Speech off.
Dad, let me go and embrace General Leger. One more. Thank you. I walked away, going to stand by the door. I wondered if she could sense that I was near. I felt so angry at everyone, at me. If the people hadn't asked for so much, or if I had done anything more, I wasn't ready to lose my own mother. I kept thinking that I couldn't live my life for other people, that love was nothing but chains. And maybe it was, but so help me, I needed these chains. I let myself feel the weight of Aaron leaving, the weight of my mother's worry, and most importantly, the weight of my mother's life hanging in the balance. These things didn't make me weaker. They helped my soul to the earth. I wasn't going to run from them anymore. I turned at the sound of the footsteps, aware that a mass of people were approaching. I was humbled, moved beyond words to see each of the selected come around the corner. Kyle looked at me. "We've come to pray." Tears filled my eyes, and I nodded. The gentlemen scattered, some leaning in a corner, and others perching on benches. They bowed their heads or lifted them, all for my mother. They'd caused such an upheaval in my life, and I was so glad they did. Hale kept his fist to his mouth, rocking on his feet nervously. Ian, as I expected, was very steady, arms crossed in concentration. Henry leaned forward on his bench, his curls flopping over his eyes, and I was happy to see that even though he didn't need to come, Eric stood beside him. Kyle found his mother and held each of Kyle found his mother and they held each other. Kyle was actually moved to tears for Mom, and strangely, that tenderness made me feel stronger. My eyes moved from him to the other remaining boys, and I thought again of how each of them had grown on me in his own way. And I looked over at Dad. His face was red from crying. His suit was all rumpled, and I could see the distress in every molecule of his body, horrified with the thought of what his wife, horrified at the thought of his wife dying. It wasn't all that. It wasn't long. It wasn't long that he'd stood where I did. That my mom's face was one of the many in his world. Wait. It wasn't all that long ago that he'd stood where I did. And he'd stood where I did. That my mom's face was one of many in his world. And yet, despite all the impediments, and all the time that had passed, they were still deeply in love. It was obvious in everything, from their shared room to the way they fretted over each other, to the way they seemed to be incapable of not flirting with each other, even after being married so long. If anyone had told me I might consider that if anyone had told me I might consider that a possibility for myself a month ago, I'd have rolled my eyes and walked away. Now, well, it didn't seem so far-fetched. I didn't expect to find what my parents had, or even what Aaron had found with Camille. But maybe I could find something. Maybe there would be one person who'd still want to kiss me when I had a runny nose. Or would rub my shoulders after a long day of meetings. Maybe I could find someone who didn't seem so scary, who made letting him pass the wall seem natural. But all that still could be asking for too much. Either way, I couldn't slow now. I knew that for my sake and for my family's sake, I had to finish my selection. And when I did, I'd have a ring on my finger